Marcus froze in the doorway, phone still in his hand, as Alina stepped out of his mother's kitchen wearing nothing but a towel and that knowing smile, the one that said she'd been waiting for him to come home early. His son was at kindergarten, his mother was at the grocery store, and the woman he'd been trying not to think about for 3 straight months had just locked the front door behind him with a soft, deliberate click. "We need to talk about what happened last weekend," she said, her voice steady, her eyes anything but. The photos had been an accident. Walking in on her in the bathroom had been an accident. But what came after, that slow, burning kiss against her new apartment wall, that hadn't been an accident at all. Now here they were, standing in his mother's house where Alina had been a family friend for over a decade, where she'd watched him grow up, where absolutely nothing like this was supposed to happen, and she was walking toward him like she'd already made up her mind about what came next. Before we dive into how Marcus got here, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this whole story, drop a comment with what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you're already hooked, hit that like button. You're going to need it for what's coming. Marcus had forgotten how quiet his hometown could be at 6 in the morning. He stood at his mother's kitchen window, coffee mug warming his hands, watching the street wake up in slow motion. A newspaper hit a driveway 3 houses down. Someone's sprinkler system clicked on. Normal, predictable, safe. Exactly what he'd come back for. Behind him, he heard the soft pad of small feet on linoleum. "Daddy, is it school day?" He turned to find his son, Jamie, standing in dinosaur pajamas that were already getting too short in the legs. 4 years old and growing faster than Marcus could keep up with. The thought made something tighten in his chest. Not sadness exactly, but a kind of determined gratitude that he was here to see it. "Yeah, buddy, school day. You want the dinosaur shirt or the space one?" "Dinosaur." Jamie climbed into his chair at the kitchen table, swinging his legs. "Grammy makes better pancakes than you." "Grammy makes better everything than me." Marcus pulled the orange juice from the fridge. "That's why we live with her." "Are we staying forever?" It was the 3rd time Jamie had asked that question in the 2 months since they'd moved in. Marcus had learned not to answer too quickly. His son had been through enough disruption. The divorce, the moves, the instability of Marcus's attempt to make it work in Seattle while his ex spiraled. Coming back here, to his mother's house in a town where nothing much happened and even less changed, had been the right call. He knew that in his bones. "We're staying as long as we need to," Marcus said. He set the juice down and crouched beside Jamie's chair, meeting his eyes. "And right now, we need to. This is home base. You, me, and Grammy. Solid." Jamie considered this with the seriousness only a 4-year-old could muster. Then he nodded. "Okay, can I have 2 pancakes? You can have 3 if Grammy makes them." "I heard that," his mother called from the hallway, and Marcus grinned despite himself. Some things really didn't change. Diane Rivers appeared in the doorway, already dressed for her shift at the medical clinic where she'd worked as an office manager for 20 years. She'd raised Marcus mostly on her own after his father died when he was 7, and she'd done it with the kind of steady competence that made hard things look easy. Now at 58, she moved through the kitchen with the same efficiency, pulling out the griddle, cracking eggs, glancing at Marcus with the particular look that meant she was reading him whether he liked it or not. "You sleep okay?" "Fine." "Liar. I heard you up at 2. "Old habits." Marcus drained his coffee. "I'm getting better." She didn't argue, but the look said she had opinions. Instead, she pointed the spatula at him. "Alina's coming by this afternoon. She's bringing some paint samples for the guest room." Marcus felt something small and strange flicker through him at the name. He covered it by rinsing his mug. "She doesn't need to do that." "She wants to. She's been helpful since she moved back." Diane poured batter onto the griddle. "Besides, she's going through her own stuff right now. Keeping busy helps." Marcus knew the broad strokes. Alina Morales, his mother's friend since before he could remember, had moved to Portland after college, gotten married, built what looked from the outside like a good life. Then a year ago, the marriage had imploded. Cheating, his mother had said. Messy. Alina had filed for divorce and moved back 3 months ago, renting a small house on the east side of town while she figured out what came next. Marcus had seen her twice since he'd been back. Once at the grocery store, where they'd exchanged the kind of polite small talk that felt oddly formal. Once here, when she'd dropped off some books for Jamie. Both times, he'd been struck by how different she seemed from the Elena he vaguely remembered from his teenage years. His mother's young friend who'd sometimes come over for dinner, who'd been friendly and easy and completely outside the sphere of his adolescent awareness. Now she was 34, 2 years older than him, and something about her had sharpened. Or maybe he was just paying attention differently. "What time's she coming?" he asked, more to say something than because it mattered. "Around 3. You'll be done with work by then?" Marcus worked remotely as a data analyst for a mid-sized firm in Denver. The job was steady, paid well enough, and required nothing of him except reliable internet and a quiet space to focus. He'd set up in the spare bedroom upstairs, and most days he liked the routine. Log on at 8, break for lunch, finish by 4, be fully present for Jamie in the evening. "Yeah, I'll be done." Diane slid pancakes onto Jamie's plate, added a careful drizzle of syrup, then looked at Marcus with that assessing expression again. "You doing okay? Really?" He knew what she was asking. The divorce had been brutal, not because he'd loved his ex-wife at the end, that had died somewhere in the middle of her 3rd rehab stint, but because fighting for custody of Jamie had required a kind of sustained, exhausting vigilance that had left him scraped raw. He'd won, finally, because the evidence had been overwhelming. But winning had felt less like victory and more like barely avoiding disaster. "I'm good, Mom. Better here. You know that." She nodded slowly. "I do. Just checking." After breakfast, Marcus got Jamie dressed, packed his backpack, and drove him to the small Montessori school 4 blocks away. It was the kind of place that smelled like crayons and had teachers who already knew every kid's name by the second week. Jamie ran inside without looking back, which Marcus took as a good sign. He drove home, made another cup of coffee, and climbed the stairs to his makeshift office. The work was what it always was: pulling data sets, running comparisons, building reports that someone in a meeting would glance at for 30 seconds. He was good at it. It didn't ask much of him emotionally, and right now, that felt like exactly enough. By 2:30, he'd finished the day's deliverables and closed his laptop. Downstairs, he could hear his mother moving around the kitchen, the faint sound of NPR on the radio. He thought about going for a run, then decided against it. Instead, he grabbed a book from the living room and settled into the armchair by the window, half reading, half watching the street. At 3:15, a silver Honda pulled into the driveway. Marcus looked up as Elena stepped out, carrying a canvas bag in one hand and her phone in the other. She was wearing jeans and a loose white button-down, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Dark hair pulled back in a way that looked casual, but probably wasn't. She moved with a kind of easy confidence that seemed new, or maybe just more visible now. He watched her walk up the front path, and something in him went still. Not attraction exactly, or not just that. More like awareness. The sense that something about her presence required a different kind of attention than he was used to giving. The front door opened. He heard his mother's voice, warm and welcoming. Then Alina's laugh, low, genuine, the kind of laugh that made you want to know what was funny. Marcus stood, setting the book aside, and walked into the kitchen. Alina was already at the table, pulling paint samples from the bag, talking about undertones and natural light. Diane was nodding along, clearly invested. Neither of them noticed him at first. Then Alina glanced up. "Hey, Marcus." "Hey." For a second, neither of them said anything else. Then Diane gestured to the samples. "Come look at these. Alina thinks the soft gray would work, but I'm worried it'll feel cold." He moved closer, standing at the edge of the table. Alina slid one of the samples toward him, her hand brushing the surface of the wood. She smelled faintly like lavender and something citrus. "What do you think?" she asked. He looked at the sample. It was gray. That was the extent of his opinion. "Looks good." Diane rolled her eyes. "You're useless." "I know." Alina smiled, but there was something in the way she was looking at him. Quick, assessing, gone, before he could pin it down. "How's Jamie adjusting?" "Good. Really good, actually. He likes his school." "That's great." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms loosely. "And you? Settling in okay?" It was a normal question. She was asking it normally. But something about the directness of her gaze made him feel like she was asking something slightly different underneath. "Yeah, it's been good to be back." Diane excused herself to take a phone call, leaving them alone in the kitchen. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it had weight. Alina tapped one of the paint samples with her finger. Your mom said you're working remote now. That's smart, flexible. It works, especially with Jamie. Single parenting's no joke. He met her eyes. You sound like you know. I don't, but I've watched enough friends go through it. She paused. For what it's worth, you seem like you're handling it well. Most days. She smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. Honest, I like that. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from his boss about a report due Monday. He glanced at it, then back at Alina. I should let you get back to this. Sure, but she didn't look away. Hey, if you ever need a break, like adult conversation that's not about dinosaurs or data, I'm around, I mean it. He nodded slowly. Thanks. I might take you up on that. Good. He left the kitchen feeling slightly off balance, like he'd just had a conversation that mattered more than the words suggested. Upstairs, he opened his laptop, stared at the screen, then closed it again. It was nothing. Alina was his mother's friend. She was being kind. That was all. Except it didn't feel like all. The week moved forward in its predictable rhythm. Work, Jamie, dinner, bedtime routines. On Thursday, Marcus picked up groceries and ran into Alina in the produce section. They talked about nothing. Tomatoes, the weather, whether Jamie would eat broccoli if it was disguised as dinosaur trees. She laughed at that, a real laugh, and touched his arm briefly when she said goodbye. He thought about that touch longer than he should have. On Saturday morning, Diane asked him to help move some furniture in the guest room so she could start painting. He agreed without thinking much of it. Then Alina showed up with a roller and a tray, sleeves already pushed up, ready to work. Surprise, Diane said. Extra hands. The three of them spent the next 2 hours moving the bed, taping edges, rolling soft gray paint onto the walls. It was easy work, the kind that didn't require much talking. Except every time Marcus glanced over, Alina was already looking at him, and every time their eyes met, she didn't look away first. By noon, the room was done. Diane went to make sandwiches. Marcus and Alina stood in the hallway, paint-flecked and tired, the smell of fresh latex hanging in the air. You're good at this, he said, nodding toward the room. I've done a lot of home projects in the past year. Turns out I like it. Beats therapy? She laughed. Sometimes, then quieter. You ever feel like you're rebuilding yourself from scratch? He looked at her carefully. Yeah, every day. Does it get easier? I don't know yet. She nodded, something passing across her face. Recognition, maybe. Solidarity? Then she smiled, lighter. Well, if you figure it out, let me know. Deal. Diane called them down for lunch. They ate on the back porch, talking about nothing important. And when Alina left an hour later, Marcus felt the afternoon stretch out a little emptier than it had before Titam. The following Tuesday, his mother asked if he could help Alina move some boxes from her storage unit to her house. She doesn't have anyone else to ask, Diane said, and it's heavy stuff. Marcus agreed because saying no would have required an explanation he didn't have. He drove to Alina's place just after 3. She lived in a small rental on Maple Street, a tidy 1-story with a front porch and a yard that was half overgrown. She answered the door in a faded t-shirt and jeans, hair tied back, no makeup. She looked tired, but in a way that felt real. You didn't have to do this, she said. I know. She smiled. Come on, I'll show you what we're dealing with. The storage unit was across town. They took his truck, and the drive was quiet at first. Comfortable, like neither of them felt the need to fill the silence. Then Alina glanced over at him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why'd you come back here? I mean, I know the basics, but really, why? He kept his eyes on the road. Because Jamie needed stable, and I needed to stop pretending I could do it all on my own. That's a good answer. It's the truth. Still good. At the storage unit, they loaded boxes into the truck bed. Books, kitchen stuff, framed photos she hadn't decided what to do with yet. She worked without complaining, and he liked that about her. No performance, just steady effort. When they got back to her house, they unloaded everything into the living room. She offered him water, and they sat on the porch steps, catching their breath. You want to know why I came back? She asked. If you want to tell me, she looked out at the street. Because I spent 10 years building a life with someone who didn't see me. And when it fell apart, I realized I didn't even know who I was anymore. So I came home. Started over. You figured it out yet? Some of it. She turned to face him. Enough to know what I don't want anymore. What's that? Pretending. Her voice was quiet but certain. I'm done pretending things are fine when they're not. Done shrinking myself to fit someone else's idea of who I should be. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. That sounds hard-won. It was. They sat there for a moment, not saying anything. Then Alina stood, brushing off her jeans. You should come in. I'll make coffee. I should probably get back. Jamie's at school until 5, your mom told me. She looked at him evenly. Stay, just for a bit. He should have said no. Should have made an excuse, kept the boundary clean. Instead, he stood and followed her inside. Her house was still mostly unpacked, boxes stacked in corners, furniture arranged but not settled. She moved through it with ease, though, like she was already making it hers. In the kitchen, she filled the coffee maker, and he leaned against the counter watching her. There was something hypnotic about the way she moved. Efficient, unhurried, present. Can I ask you something now? He said. Fair's fair. Do you regret the marriage? She paused, then shook her head. No, I regret staying as long as I did, but I don't regret trying. That's a fine line. It is. She turned to face him, arms crossed loosely. You regret yours? The divorce? No. The marriage? Yeah. Some of it. Which part? The part where I thought I could fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. Alina's expression softened. That's a hard lesson. It was. The coffee maker beeped. She poured 2 mugs, handed him one, and they moved into the living room. She sat on the couch, and he took the chair across from her. It felt deliberate, that distance. They talked for an hour, about Jamie, about her plans for the house, about the strange limbo of rebuilding after everything falls apart. The conversation was easy in a way that surprised him, like they'd been friends for years, not just circling each other for weeks. At some point, she got up to grab something from one of the boxes, a framed photo she wanted to show him. But when she pulled it out, a stack of other photos slipped free and scattered across the floor. Marcus bent to help pick them up. And that's when he saw them. They weren't explicit, not quite, but they were intimate. Alina, in elegant lighting, black and white, posed in ways that were artful and undeniably sensual. Boudoir shots, he realized. Professional. He froze, caught between politeness and the undeniable fact that he was holding them. Alina straightened, saw what he had in his hands, and went very still. For a beat, neither of them moved. Then she stepped forward, calm, and took the photos from him without a word. She set them on the side table, not rushed, not embarrassed, just deliberate. Those were from before, she said quietly. A gift for my ex. Obviously didn't pan out. Marcus swallowed. I know. She looked at him, and there was something new in her eyes now, something unguarded. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. The air between them had changed, thickened, charged with something neither of them had named yet. I should go, he said. Probably. But neither of them moved. Alina tilted her head slightly, studying him. You're not what I expected. What'd you expect? I don't know. The kid I used to see at your mom's house. Someone younger. I'm not that anymore. No. Her voice dropped. You're not. The silence stretched. Marcus felt his pulse in his throat. This was the moment to leave, to step back, to keep everything clean and simple. Instead, he asked, What are you thinking right now? She smiled, small, dangerous. That I probably shouldn't tell you. Why not? Because if I do, this gets complicated. It's already complicated. Alina laughed softly, shaking her head. Yeah, it is. She moved closer, just a step, and suddenly the space between them felt like nothing at all. I should go, Marcus said again, but he didn't move. You said that already. I mean it. Do you? He looked at her, really looked, and saw someone who was done pretending, done hiding, someone who knew exactly what she wanted and wasn't afraid of it. I don't know, he said honestly. That's okay. Alina's voice was barely a whisper. Neither do I. They stood there, caught in the gravity of something neither of them had asked for but couldn't seem to walk away from. Then, from outside, a car door slammed. A neighbor's voice called out a greeting. The spell broke. Marcus took a step back. I really do need to go. Alina nodded, but her eyes stayed on him. Okay? He walked to the door and she followed. When he turned back, she was standing in the doorway, backlit by the afternoon sun, looking like someone he couldn't afford to want but wanted anyway. Thanks for the help today, she said. Yeah, anytime. Marcus? He stopped. I meant what I said. About adult conversation, if you need it. He nodded. I'll keep that in mind. He drove home with the windows down, trying to clear his head. But all he could think about was the way she'd looked at him, the way the air had felt right before he left, the way, for just a second, he'd wanted to stay. That night, after Jamie was asleep and the house was quiet, Marcus stood in the shower and let the water run hot. He told himself it was nothing. A moment. A flicker of something that didn't mean anything. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Alina standing in her living room, unguarded and certain, and he knew he was lying to himself. Something had started, and he had no idea how to stop it. The next 3 days, Marcus kept his distance. Not obviously. He still showed up for dinner, still helped his mother with small tasks around the house, still lived his regular life. But he made sure he wasn't alone when Alina came by, made sure the conversation stayed surface level, made sure he didn't look at her longer than necessary. It almost worked. On Friday evening, Diane announced she was driving to Portland for the weekend to visit an old college friend. I'll leave Saturday morning, be back Sunday night, she said over dinner. You two will be fine, right? Jamie nodded enthusiastically, already planning a weekend of cartoons and pancakes. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest, though he couldn't have said exactly why. We'll be fine. Saturday morning arrived clear and warm. Diane left just after 8, her overnight bag packed, reminders about leftovers in the fridge and Jamie's allergy medicine delivered in rapid succession. Then the house was quiet, just Marcus and his son eating cereal at the kitchen table. Can we go to the park? Jamie asked. After lunch. Deal? Deal. Marcus spent the morning working through emails, half-focused, his mind elsewhere. Around 11, his phone buzzed, a text from Alina. Your mom said you're on solo duty this weekend. Need backup? He stared at the message longer than he should have. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He could say no. Should say no. Keep everything clean and uncomplicated. Instead, he typed, We're going to the park after lunch. You're welcome to come. Her response came immediately. See you there. He set the phone down and exhaled slowly, already second-guessing himself. The park was a 10-minute drive, a sprawling green space with playground equipment that had been updated since Marcus was a kid. Jamie ran straight for the swings, and Marcus followed, pushing him higher and higher until his son's laughter cut through the afternoon air. Higher, Daddy! That's as high as it goes, bud. No, it's not. Marcus grinned despite himself. You want to fly off into space? Yes. Not today. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to find Alina walking across the grass, sunglasses pushed up into her hair, wearing a loose gray t-shirt and shorts. She looked relaxed, easy, like she belonged here. Hey, she said. Hey. Jamie noticed her immediately and waved from the swing. Alina, watch me. I'm watching, she called back, then turned to Marcus. He's fearless. Tell me about it. They stood side by side, watching Jamie swing. For a minute, neither of them said anything. The silence felt comfortable, but underneath it, Marcus could feel the tension from Tuesday still humming. Finally, Alina glanced at him. You've been avoiding me. He didn't deny it. Yeah. Because of the photos? Because of what almost happened after the photos. She nodded slowly. Fair. I'm not... He stopped, searching for the right words. I'm not trying to complicate things. I know. She turned to face him fully. But they're already complicated, Marcus. Pretending they're not doesn't change that. Before he could respond, Jamie jumped off the swing mid-arc and hit the ground running, heading for the slide. Marcus moved to follow, but Alina caught his arm. Wait. He stopped, looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. I'm not asking you for anything, she said quietly. I just think we should stop pretending there's nothing here. There can't be anything here. Why not? Because you're my mother's friend. Because it's messy. Because I've got a kid and a life I'm trying to keep stable. And I'm a complication. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. She let go of his arm but didn't step back. Look, I get it. You're being careful. You should be. But don't pretend you don't feel this too. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. Because she was right. He did feel it. Had been feeling it since that first afternoon in the kitchen, maybe longer, and lying about it wasn't going to make it go away. I do, he said finally. But that doesn't mean I should act on it. Maybe not, Alina's voice softened. But it also doesn't mean you have to run from it, Jamie called out from the top of the slide, breaking the moment. Marcus waved at him, then looked back at Alina. I don't know what you want me to say. Nothing. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I just wanted you to stop avoiding me. That's all. They spent the next hour at the park, and it was easier than Marcus expected. Alina pushed Jamie on the swings, raced him across the jungle gym, sat with him in the sandbox building, elaborate castles that collapsed as soon as they were finished. She was good with kids, patient, playful, present. Jamie adored her, and Marcus could see why. But every time their eyes met across the playground, Marcus felt that same pull, that same awareness. Around 3, Jamie started to fade, rubbing his eyes and leaning against Marcus's leg. Can we go home? Yeah, bud, let's go. Alina walked them to the parking lot. Jamie climbed into his car seat, already half asleep, and Marcus closed the door gently. Thanks for coming, he said. Thanks for letting me. They stood there, the afternoon sun slanting between them. Marcus knew he should just get in the car and drive away, keep the boundaries intact. But instead he heard himself say, You want to come over for dinner? Nothing fancy, just, yes? He blinked. I didn't finish. Doesn't matter, yes. He couldn't help but smile. Okay. That evening, Marcus made spaghetti while Jamie colored at the kitchen table and Alina sat on the counter, legs swinging, telling stories about her week. It felt domestic in a way that should have been uncomfortable but wasn't. Natural, even. After dinner, Jamie insisted on showing Alina his room, dragging her upstairs to see his collection of dinosaur figurines. Marcus cleaned up the kitchen, listening to their voices drift down from above. Jamie's excited chatter, Alina's warm responses. It made something in his chest loosen. When they came back down, Jamie was yawning again. Marcus carried him through the bedtime routine, bath, pajamas, teeth, story, and by the time he turned off the light, his son was already asleep. Downstairs, Alina was waiting on the couch, flipping through a magazine she'd found on the coffee table. She looked up when he walked in. He's out? Like a light. Marcus sat in the chair across from her, keeping the distance deliberate. You're good with him? He's easy to be good with. Still, not everyone knows how to talk to kids. Alina set the magazine aside. I always wanted them. Kids, I mean. But my ex kept saying we'd wait. Then one day I realized we'd been waiting for 5 years and nothing had changed. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's better to know. She looked at him steadily. You're lucky, you know. Having Jamie. Even with everything you've been through. I know. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't need filling. Then Alina shifted, pulling her legs up under her on the couch. Can I ask you something? Sure. What scared you on Tuesday? Marcus exhaled. Honestly, the fact that I wanted to stay. That I almost didn't care about the consequences. Would the consequences really be that bad? I don't know. Probably. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. My mom would lose her mind. People would talk. And I can't bring that kind of chaos into Jamie's life. Not now. So you'd rather just, what, ignore it? I'd rather not make things harder than they already are. Alina nodded slowly, like she was considering this. Then she stood, crossing the room to sit on the arm of his chair, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her. What if it didn't have to be chaos? She said quietly. He looked up at her. What do you mean? I mean, what if we were careful? What if no one had to know? Marcus felt his pulse quicken. I'm talking about not pretending anymore, not running from this. She reached out, her fingers brushing the back of his hand. I'm not asking you to blow up your life, Marcus. I'm just asking you to be honest about what you want. And if what I want is a bad idea, then we'll deal with it together. He should have said no. Should have stood up, put distance between them, ended this before it started. But when he looked at her, really looked, he saw someone who wasn't afraid. Someone who knew exactly what she was asking for and wasn't apologizing for it. If we do this, he said slowly, no one can know. Not my mom, not anyone. Agreed. And if it gets too complicated, we stop. She slid down into the chair beside him, their shoulders touching. But we don't stop before we start. Marcus turned his head, and suddenly her face was inches from his. He could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, the faint freckles across her nose, the curve of her mouth. This is a terrible idea, he said. Probably. We're going to regret it. Maybe, she smiled. But I'd rather regret doing something than regret being too scared to try. He didn't remember deciding to kiss her. One moment they were talking, and the next his hand was in her hair and her mouth was on his, and nothing else mattered. The kiss was slow, deliberate, like they were both making sure this was real. When they pulled apart, Alina's eyes were bright, her breathing uneven. Okay, she said. Okay? That was... Yeah, okay. Marcus laughed despite himself, the sound surprising him. Eloquent. Shut up. She kissed him again, deeper this time, her hand sliding up to frame his face. He pulled her closer, and she shifted, settling into his lap like she'd been there 100 times before. The fit was perfect, easy, and that scared him almost as much as it thrilled him. When they broke apart again, he pressed his forehead to hers. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. Rules, he said. We need rules. Okay. Rule 1, absolute secrecy. Rule 2, if either of us wants to stop, we stop. No questions. Alina nodded. Rule 3, we don't let this hurt Jamie. Agreed. He hesitated. What about your timeline? You just got out of a marriage. And you're worried I'm rebounding. She leaned back slightly, meeting his eyes. I'm not. I've been done with that marriage for a long time, Marcus. This, whatever this is, it's not about filling a void. It's about wanting you. The honesty in her voice hit him harder than he expected. Okay. Okay? Yeah. They kissed again, slower this time, and Marcus let himself sink into it. Let himself stop thinking about all the reasons this was a bad idea and just feel it instead. Eventually, Alina pulled back, glancing at the clock on the wall. I should go before your neighbors start wondering why my car's been here all night. Yeah. He didn't want her to leave, but he knew she was right. They stood, and he walked her to the door. On the porch, she turned back, her hand on his chest. Hey. Yeah? No regrets, not yet. He smiled. Not yet. She kissed him one more time, quick and certain, then walked to her car. He watched her drive away, the taillights disappearing around the corner, and felt the weight of what they'd just started settle over him. Inside, the house was quiet. He locked the door, turned off the lights, and climbed the stairs. In his room, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, knowing he wouldn't sleep anytime soon. His phone buzzed. A text from Alina. Still awake? He smiled. Yeah. Good. Me too. Just wanted to make sure you weren't spiraling. I'm definitely spiraling. Want me to come back? He hesitated, then typed. Yes, but you shouldn't. I know. Tomorrow? Maybe. I'll let you know. Okay. Good night, Marcus. Good night. He set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd figure out how to navigate this, how to keep it secret, keep it safe, keep it from exploding. But tonight he just let himself remember the way she'd looked at him, the way she'd felt in his arms, the way for the first time in a long time, something had felt exactly right. The next morning, Jamie woke him early, bouncing on the bed with the kind of energy only 4-year-olds possessed. Daddy, can we make pancakes? Marcus groaned, pulling the pillow over his face. Grammy makes the pancakes. But she's not here. That's my point. Jamie giggled and kept bouncing. Marcus gave up, rolled out of bed, and stumbled downstairs. He was halfway through measuring flour when his phone rang. His mother. Hey, Mom. How's everything going? Fine. Jamie's demanding pancakes I'm not qualified to make. Diane laughed. There's a box mix in the pantry. Just add water. You're a lifesaver. How was yesterday? Did you go to the park? Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Yeah, we went. It was good. Did Alina meet you there? He froze. How'd you know that? She texted me last night, said she had fun. There was a pause. She's been through a lot, Marcus. I'm glad you're being kind to her. Yeah, of course. Okay, well, I'll let you go. Kiss Jamie for me. Will do. He hung up, his pulse still elevated. It was fine, nothing suspicious. His mother was just being his mother. But the reminder of how close they were walking to the edge made his chest tighten. He made the pancakes, lumpy and uneven, but edible, and Jamie devoured them without complaint. Afterward, they played in the backyard, building a fort out of old cardboard boxes. It was easy, simple, exactly the kind of day Marcus had moved back for. But in the back of his mind, he kept thinking about Alina, about the way she'd kissed him, about the rules they'd set and how fragile they already felt. Around noon, his phone buzzed. Another text from her. What are you doing? Fort construction. You? Painting the guest room. Want company later? He glanced at Jamie, who was currently trying to fit inside a box that was clearly too small. Maybe? Let me see how the day goes. Okay. No pressure. But there was pressure. He could feel it building, the pull between wanting to see her and knowing he shouldn't. Not yet. Not while he was still figuring out how to balance this. That evening, after Jamie was in bed, Marcus sat on the back porch with a beer, staring at the darkening sky. His phone was in his hand, Alina's number pulled up, his thumb hovering over the call button. He didn't call. Instead, he texted, "Tomorrow. Come over tomorrow." Her response was immediate. Okay. What time? After I drop Jamie at school, around 9? I'll be there. He set the phone down and exhaled. Tomorrow, this became real. Tomorrow, they'd figure out what this actually was. But tonight, he let himself sit in the anticipation, the nervous energy of something starting that he couldn't quite control. When Diane came home Sunday night, she hugged Jamie, unpacked her bag, and made tea while telling Marcus about her weekend. He listened, nodded in the right places, and told himself he wasn't hiding anything. Not really. But when she asked casually, "Did Alina stop by this weekend?" he felt his throat go dry. "Yeah, at the park on Saturday." "That's nice. She's lonely, I think. It's good she has people to spend time with." "Yeah." Diane looked at him over her tea, and for a second Marcus wondered if she could see straight through him, but then she just smiled. "You're a good son. You know that?" "I try." That night, lying in bed, Marcus thought about what they were doing, the secrecy, the risk, the way Alina had looked at him like he was the only person in the room. He thought about Jamie, about his mother, about all the ways this could go wrong. And then he thought about the way Alina's mouth had felt against his, and how, for the first time in months, he'd felt something other than tired. He fell asleep thinking about tomorrow, and what it would bring. When 9 o'clock rolled around Monday morning, Marcus had already been awake for hours. He'd dropped Jamie at school, come home, made coffee, and checked his watch approximately 40 times. His mother was at work. The house was empty, and Alina was on her way. He heard her car in the driveway and forced himself to stay in the kitchen, not rush to the door like some kind of teenager. She knocked twice, soft, and he opened it. She was wearing a denim jacket over a black tank top, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked nervous, which surprised him. He'd half expected her to be completely composed. "Hey," she said. "Hey, come in." She stepped inside and he closed the door behind her. For a second, they just stood there in the entryway, the weight of what they were doing settling between them. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "About 100. "Me too," she smiled. "But I'm still here." "Yeah, you are." She moved closer, her hand sliding up his chest. "So what now?" "I have no idea." She laughed, and the sound broke the tension. "Okay, good. At least we're on the same page." He kissed her then, pulling her against him, and it felt just as good as it had Friday night. Maybe better, because this time it wasn't a surprise. This time, they both knew exactly what they were choosing. They ended up on the couch, her legs across his lap, talking in the way people do when they're trying to learn each other quickly. She told him about her marriage, how it had died slowly in small betrayals and silences. He told her about his ex, about the custody battle, about the relief and guilt that came with finally having Jamie safe. "You don't talk about her much," Alina said. "There's not much to say. She made her choices. I made mine. Do you still love her?" "No. I don't think I have for a long time." Alina nodded, tracing patterns on his arm. "I don't love my ex either, but I'm angry at him. Is that weird?" "Not even a little. I keep thinking about all the time I wasted, all the ways I tried to make it work when he'd already checked out." "You didn't waste it, you tried. That's not the same thing." She looked at him, something soft crossing her face. "You're kind. I didn't expect that." "What'd you expect?" "I don't know. Someone harder, maybe, more closed off." "I am closed off." "Not with me." He didn't have an answer for that. Because she was right. With her, the walls he'd built felt thinner, easier to see through. They talked for hours, the conversation drifting from serious to silly and back again. She made him laugh, really laugh, in a way he hadn't in months. And when she kissed him, slow and sure, he felt like maybe this wasn't as reckless as it seemed. Around noon, she checked her phone and sighed. "I have to go. I've got a meeting with a potential client." "What kind of work are you doing now?" "Freelance graphic design. It's not much yet, but it's mine." "That's good." She stood, and he walked her to the door. On the porch, she turned back. "When can I see you again?" "I don't know. I have to figure out the logistics." "Okay." She kissed him once more. "But don't make me wait too long." "I won't." He watched her leave, and the house felt emptier without her in it. Over the next 2 weeks, they found their rhythm. Alina would come over in the mornings after Marcus dropped Jamie at school, and they'd have a few hours before he had to pick him up. They talked, kissed, slowly learned the geography of each other. It was careful, deliberate, neither of them ready to rush, both of them aware of how fragile this was. His mother didn't suspect anything, or if she did, she didn't say. Marcus was careful. Never let Alina's car stay too long. Never let their interactions in front of Diane feel different than before. It was exhausting, the constant vigilance, but it also felt necessary. One morning, lying on the couch with Alina's head on his chest, Marcus said, "This is going to get harder, you know." "I know." "Are you okay with that?" She lifted her head, looking at him. "Are you?" "I don't know. Ask me again in a month." She smiled. "Fair enough." But even as he said it, Marcus knew the answer. He was already in too deep to walk away. Whatever this was, secret, complicated, impossible, it had become something he needed, and that scared him more than anything. The month passed faster than Marcus expected, slipping through his fingers in stolen mornings and careful glances across his mother's dinner table. By mid-November, the routine had become almost comfortable. Drop Jamie at school, meet Alina at the house or hers, talk and touch and exist in their own private world for a few hours, then return to regular life like nothing had changed. Except everything had changed, at least for him. He was thinking about her constantly. When he was working, when he was reading to Jamie at night, when he was sitting across from his mother at breakfast pretending everything was normal. The secret had weight, a living thing he carried everywhere, and some days it felt manageable, and other days it felt like it might crush him. On a Thursday morning in late November, Marcus stood in Alina's kitchen watching her make coffee, and something about the domesticity of it made his chest ache. She was barefoot, wearing one of his old t-shirts that she'd stolen 2 weeks ago, her hair pulled into a messy knot. The morning light caught her profile, and he thought not for the first time that this was going to end badly, that there was no version of this where everyone walked away unscathed. She turned, catching him staring. "What?" "Nothing." "Liar." She crossed to him, sliding her arms around his waist. "You've got that look again." "What look?" "The one where you're overthinking everything." She tilted her head up. "Talk to me." He hesitated, then said, "I'm just wondering how long we can keep this up." "Are you having second thoughts?" "No, that's the problem. I should be, but I'm not." Alina smiled, but it was tinged with something sad. "Yeah, I know what you mean." They stood like that for a moment, wrapped up in each other, and Marcus felt the familiar pull, the desire to just say, forget it, forget the secrecy, forget the complications. But he couldn't, not with Jamie to think about, not with his mother. Not with the life he was trying to build that actually felt stable for the first time in years. "We knew it would be hard," Alina said quietly. "I know. Doesn't make it easier." "No." She pulled back slightly, meeting his eyes. "But it's worth it. You know that, right?" "Yeah, I do." She kissed him, slow and certain, and for a few minutes he let himself forget everything except the taste of her mouth and the warmth of her skin against his. Then his phone buzzed. A reminder: Jamie's school was having a Thanksgiving program at noon, and parents were invited. Marcus had completely forgotten. "I have to go," he said, pulling away reluctantly. "Now?" "Yeah, Jamie's thing at school." He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Go. I'll see you later." He kissed her once more, quick and distracted, then headed for the door. As he drove across town, he tried to shake off the guilt that clung to him. He hadn't done anything wrong, not really. Jamie didn't know. His mother didn't know. No one was getting hurt. But the lie still felt heavy. At the school, Marcus found a seat in the back of the cafeteria, surrounded by other parents with cameras and proud smiles. Jamie spotted him immediately and waved so enthusiastically he nearly knocked over the kid next to him. Marcus waved back, grinning despite himself. The program was exactly what he expected: off-key singing, construction paper turkeys, kids forgetting their lines. Jamie played a pilgrim and delivered his one line with such seriousness that several parents laughed. Marcus recorded the whole thing on his phone, already imagining showing it to Alina later. That thought stopped him cold. He was imagining a future where she was part of these moments, where it was normal to share things like this with her. When had that happened? When had she stopped being a secret and started feeling like something permanent? After the program, he collected Jamie, who was buzzing with excitement. "Did you see me, Daddy? Did you see?" "I saw. You were great. Can we get ice cream?" "It's November." "So?" Marcus laughed. "Okay, but just this once." They stopped at the ice cream shop on Main Street, and Jamie got chocolate with sprinkles while Marcus nursed a coffee. They sat in the window booth, and Jamie chattered nonstop about the program, about his friends, about the field trip next week to the fire station. Marcus listened, responding in the right places, but part of his mind was elsewhere. His phone buzzed. A text from Alina. "How'd it go?" "Good." He was perfect. Of course he was. "Send me the video?" Marcus hesitated, then forwarded it. A minute later, she responded with a string of heart emojis, and something warm spread through his chest. Jamie noticed him smiling at his phone. "Who are you texting?" "Just a friend." "What friend?" "Alina. You remember her, right?" "Yeah, she's nice. Is she coming over again?" Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "Maybe. Why?" "I like when she comes over. She's fun." "Yeah, she is." Jamie went back to his ice cream, oblivious, and Marcus tried to ignore the uncomfortable truth settling over him. His son liked Alina. His son was starting to expect her presence, and that made everything infinitely more complicated. That evening, after dinner and Jamie's bedtime routine, Marcus sat on the porch with his mother. The November air was crisp, the kind of cold that promised winter wasn't far off. Diane had made tea, and they sat in companionable silence for a while, the way they often did. "You seem different lately," Diane said eventually. Marcus's pulse spiked. "Different how?" "I don't know. Lighter, maybe. Less stressed." She glanced at him. "It's good. I'm glad you're settling in." "Yeah, I think I am. And Jamie's happy. That's what matters most." "It is." Diane sipped her tea, then said, "Alina's been coming around more. I'm glad you two are getting along." Marcus kept his face neutral. "She's easy to talk to." "She is. She's been through a lot, you know. That divorce really did a number on her." "I can imagine." "I think she's lonely." Diane looked at him thoughtfully. "It's good she has people she can rely on. Friends." The word felt like a knife. Friends. That's what they were supposed to be, what everyone thought they were. And Marcus nodded, played along, hated himself a little for it. "Yeah, I'm glad we can be there for her." Diane smiled, satisfied, and changed the subject to Thanksgiving plans. Marcus listened, responded, acted normal. But inside, the weight was getting heavier. Later that night, lying in bed, he called Alina. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, couldn't sleep?" "Not really. You?" "Same." He heard rustling like she was adjusting in bed. "What's on your mind?" "My mom. She said something tonight about you being lonely, about how it's good we're friends." Alina was quiet for a moment. "Does that bother you?" "I don't know. Maybe. It feels like lying." "It is lying. That doesn't bother you?" "Of course it bothers me. But what's the alternative, Marcus? We tell everyone and deal with the fallout? You ready for that?" He wasn't. He knew he wasn't. But the question still sat there, unanswered between them. "I just hate that we have to hide," he said finally. "Me too. But we agreed to this, both of us." "I know. Do you want to stop?" Her voice was careful, neutral, but he could hear the tension underneath. "No, I don't." "Okay, then we keep going, and we deal with the hard parts as they come." "That's simple?" "Nothing about this is simple, but yeah, basically." Marcus smiled despite himself. "You're annoyingly practical sometimes." "Someone has to be." They talked for another hour, about nothing and everything, until Marcus's eyes grew heavy and Alina's voice softened with sleep. Eventually, they said goodnight, and he lay in the dark feeling the ache of wanting her there beside him and knowing she couldn't be. The week before Thanksgiving, Diane announced she was hosting dinner at the house. "Nothing huge," she said, "just us, and I invited Alina. She doesn't have family nearby, and I don't want her spending the holiday alone." Marcus's heart sank. That's nice of you." "I thought so. You don't mind, do you?" "No, of course not." But he did mind. Not because he didn't want Alina there, but because sitting across from her at a family dinner, pretending they were nothing more than friendly acquaintances, felt like a special kind of torture. When he told Alina later, she laughed. "Well, this should be interesting." "You think this is funny?" "A little. Come on, Marcus. We've been doing this for weeks. We can handle one dinner." "You sure about that?" "No, but we'll figure it out." Her voice softened. "Besides, I want to be there. With you. Even if it's complicated." "Everything with us is complicated." "Yeah, but it's worth it." Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and bright. Marcus woke early, helped his mother prep the turkey, and tried not to think about the fact that in a few hours, Alina would be sitting at their table, and he'd have to act like his entire body wasn't attuned to her presence. Jamie was excited, running around the house in his good clothes, asking a million questions about when the food would be ready. Diane was in full hosting mode, checking dishes, setting the table, making sure everything was perfect. And Marcus moved through it all on autopilot, his mind already 3 steps ahead to the moment Alina walked through the door. She arrived at 2, carrying a bottle of wine and a pie she'd made herself. She hugged Diane, ruffled Jamie's hair, and when she looked at Marcus, her eyes held a glimmer of amusement that only he would catch. "Hey, Marcus." "Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for having me." It was painfully polite, and he wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. Instead, he took her coat, hung it in the closet, and tried to ignore the way his pulse kicked up just from being near her. Dinner was easier than he expected. Alina was good at this, charming, funny, effortlessly sliding into conversation with his mother. Jamie adored her, insisting she sit next to him and telling her about his upcoming field trip in exhaustive detail. And Marcus sat across from them, watching, feeling like he was living in 2 realities at once. At one point, Diane raised her glass. "I want to say how grateful I am. For family, for friends, for this beautiful life we've built together." She looked at Marcus. "I'm so glad you're home, sweetheart, and I'm glad we can share this with people we care about." Everyone clinked glasses, and Marcus met Alina's eyes across the table. For just a second, something passed between them. An acknowledgement of the irony, the impossibility, the strange beauty of sitting here together in plain sight while hiding everything that mattered. After dinner, Diane insisted on cleaning up alone, shooing everyone out of the kitchen. Jamie went to play with his new toy, and Marcus and Alina ended up on the back porch, standing in the cold, their breath fogging in the air. "That was harder than I thought it would be," Marcus said quietly. "Sitting across from you and not being able to touch you?" "Yeah, that was torture." He glanced at the house, making sure no one could see them, then reached out and took her hand. Just for a second, just long enough to feel the warmth of her palm against his. "We can't keep doing this," he said. Alina's face fell. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we can't keep pretending this is sustainable. Something's got to give." "So what do you want to do?" Tell your mother? Tell everyone? I don't know. But this, sitting there, lying to her face, it's killing me. Alina pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself. So what, you want to end it? No, that's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Marcus? Because I need you to be clear. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm saying I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to keep lying to the people I love while also being with you. And I'm scared that if we keep going like this, something's going to break. Something's always going to break. That's the risk. Her voice was sharp now, defensive. But if you're looking for an excuse to walk away, just say so. I'm not walking away. Then what? I don't know. The words came out louder than he intended, and he immediately lowered his voice. I don't know, Alina. I'm trying to figure it out. She stared at him for a long moment, her jaw tight. Then she exhaled, some of the fight going out of her. Okay, fine. Figure it out. But don't punish me for the fact that this is hard. I'm in this just as much as you are. I know. Do you? Because right now it feels like I'm the problem. You're not the problem. The situation is the problem. And we knew that going in. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. We knew this would be messy. We chose it anyway. So don't act surprised now that it's actually messy. Marcus looked at her, really looked, and saw the hurt underneath the anger. She was scared too. Scared he was going to bail, scared this was all about to fall apart. And he realized, standing there in the cold, that walking away wasn't an option, not anymore. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For making you feel like you're the problem. You're not. You're the only thing keeping me sane right now. Her expression softened. Yeah? Yeah. She reached out, her fingers brushing his, and they stood there in the fading light, connected by the thinnest thread, holding on because letting go felt impossible. Inside, they could hear Jamie laughing, Diane's voice calling them back in for pie. The real world, waiting for them. But for just a moment longer, they stayed where they were, caught between what was and what could never be. The next few weeks tested them in ways Marcus hadn't anticipated. December brought holidays, family obligations, school events, all the things that required his full presence while Alina existed in the margins. They texted constantly, stole moments when they could, but the physical distance was harder than he'd expected. He missed her in a way that felt disproportionate to the amount of time they'd actually spent together. One afternoon in mid-December, Marcus was working in his makeshift office when his mother knocked on the door. Can I talk to you for a second? Yeah, of course. He closed his laptop, giving her his full attention. Diane sat on the edge of the bed, looking unusually hesitant. I wanted to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Marcus's stomach dropped. Okay. Is something going on with you and Alina? The question hit him like a punch. For a second he couldn't breathe. Then he forced his face into something neutral. What do you mean? I mean, I've noticed things. The way you look at each other. The way you both get quiet sometimes when I walk in the room. She paused. I'm not blind, Marcus. He didn't know what to say. Lying felt impossible, but telling the truth felt worse. Mom, just tell me the truth. Are you two seeing each other? The silence stretched. Marcus's mind raced, trying to find the right words, the right explanation. But there was no good way to say this. Yes, he said finally. Diane closed her eyes, and for a moment she looked older than he'd ever seen her. How long? A couple months. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Like I'm concerned? Like I think this is a terrible idea? Is it? Marcus's voice came out sharper than he intended. Why? Because she's your friend? Because people will talk? Because it's complicated, Marcus. Because you have a son to think about. Because Alina just got out of a bad marriage, and you just got out of a bad divorce, and neither of you is thinking clearly. You don't know what we're thinking. Then tell me. Help me understand why you're sneaking around like teenagers instead of just being honest. Marcus stood, pacing to the window. Because I knew you'd judge it. I knew you'd make it about all the ways it could go wrong instead of just... He stopped, exhaling hard. I like her, Mom. A lot. And yeah, it's complicated, but it's also the first thing that's felt right in a long time. Diane was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm not judging you. I'm worried about you, both of you. We're adults. We can handle ourselves. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're hiding something that's clearly important to you, and that doesn't seem like handling it. Marcus turned to face her. So what do you want me to do? End it? Pretend I don't feel what I feel? I want you to think about what you're doing, about Jamie, about the fact that if this goes wrong, it doesn't just affect you two. It affects all of us. And what if it doesn't go wrong? Diane stood, crossing to him. She put a hand on his arm, her voice gentler now. Then I'll be happy for you. But you have to be honest. With me, with Alina, with yourself. No more hiding. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I know, but ready or not, you can't keep doing this. It's not fair to anyone. She left him standing there, alone in the room, feeling like the ground had just shifted beneath his feet. That night, he told Alina. They sat in her living room, the space between them heavy with tension, and he relayed the entire conversation. When he finished, Alina was quiet for a long time. So she knows, she said finally. Yeah. And she's not happy about it. Not exactly. Alina leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I asked you first. Marcus exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to stop seeing you, but I also can't keep lying to my mother. Not now that she knows. So we tell people. And deal with the fallout. Yeah. They looked at each other, and Marcus saw the same fear in her eyes that he felt in his chest. This was the moment, the turning point. They could walk away now, end it before it got messier. Or they could step forward into the unknown and see what happened. Are you scared? Alina asked. Terrified. Me too. She reached for his hand, but I'm not ready to give this up. Neither am I. Okay. Then we do it. We stop hiding. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay. She kissed him then, and it felt different somehow, less stolen, less secret. Like they'd just made a choice that couldn't be unmade. When he left that night, driving home through the dark, Marcus felt the weight of what they'd decided settling over him. Tomorrow, they'd tell people. Tomorrow, the secret would become real. And whatever came after, judgment, gossip, consequences, they'd face it together. He pulled into the driveway and sat in the truck for a moment, staring at the house where his mother and son were sleeping. He thought about Jamie, about the life he'd worked so hard to build. And he thought about Alina, about the way she made him feel like himself again. Then he got out, locked the truck, and walked inside. Whatever came next, he'd deal with it. Because some things, some people, were worth the risk. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, rehearsing conversations that would never go the way he imagined them. By the time dawn broke, he'd convinced himself a dozen times to call Alina and tell her they'd made a mistake, that they should keep things quiet a little longer. But every time he reached for his phone, he remembered the look in her eyes when she'd said she wasn't ready to give this up. Neither was he. At breakfast, Jamie chattered about his upcoming winter concert, while Diane moved around the kitchen with her usual efficiency. She didn't look at Marcus any differently, didn't act like their conversation from yesterday had happened. But he could feel the shift, something unspoken hanging in the air between them. After dropping Jamie at school, Marcus sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, phone in hand, before finally texting Alina. We need to talk about how we're doing this. Her response came fast. Come over. He drove to her place, his stomach tight with nerves. She answered the door in sweatpants and an oversized sweater, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. Hey, she said. Hey. They moved to the couch, sitting close but not touching. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Alina said, So, we're really doing this. Apparently. Any second thoughts? Marcus exhaled. About 1,000. You? Same. She pulled her legs up under her. But I meant what I said last night. I'm not walking away. Even if people lose their minds? Even then. She looked at him steadily. Are you worried about your mom? Yeah, among other things. She'll come around. You don't know that. No, but I know her. She loves you. She'll want you to be happy, even if she doesn't like how we got here. Marcus wanted to believe that. But he'd seen the look on his mother's face, the worry, the disappointment, and he knew that look would only multiply once other people found out. What about everyone else? He asked. Your friends? People in town? They're going to have opinions. Let them. I'm done living my life based on what other people think. Alina reached for his hand. I spent 10 years doing that in my marriage. I'm not doing it anymore. That's easy to say now. It's not easy, but it's necessary. She squeezed his fingers. Look, I know this is scary, but we can't control how people react. We can only control what we do, and I choose this. I choose you. The words settled over him, and Marcus felt something shift. She was right. They couldn't control the fallout, but they could control their response to it, and hiding hadn't worked. It had only made things harder. Okay, he said. So how do we do this? Do we tell people individually, or I think we just live our lives? Stop hiding. Let people figure it out. That feels like avoiding it. Maybe. Or maybe it's just being honest without making it a big announcement. Alina tilted her head. Your mom already knows. That's the hardest one, right? Everyone else, they'll adjust or they won't. But we don't owe them an explanation. Marcus thought about that. She was right. They didn't owe anyone anything. But the practical side of his brain kept throwing up obstacles. What about Jamie? What about the people at his mother's clinic who'd known him since he was a kid? What about the fact that this town was small and gossip traveled fast? I'm worried about Jamie, he said quietly. I know, but he already likes me, and we'll be careful with how we introduce this to him. We don't have to rush anything. And if it doesn't work out? If we try this and it falls apart? Alina was quiet for a moment. Then she said, then we deal with it. But I'd rather take that risk than spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been. Marcus looked at her, really looked, and saw someone who'd made peace with uncertainty in a way he hadn't yet. She'd already lost everything once. This was just another risk in a long line of risks, and she was choosing it anyway. You're braver than me, he said. No, I'm just tired of being scared. He kissed her then, slow and deliberate, and for a few minutes the fear receded. When they pulled apart, Alina rested her forehead against his. We're going to be okay, she said. You sound sure. I'm faking it. Marcus laughed despite himself. Good to know. They spent the rest of the morning making a loose plan. They'd stop hiding, no more sneaking around, no more careful timing. Alina would come over openly, spend time with Jamie, be part of Marcus's life in a way that was visible. If people asked, they'd be honest. And if people judged, they'd deal with it. It sounded simple. Marcus knew it wouldn't be. That afternoon, when he picked Jamie up from school, his son was unusually quiet in the car. Marcus glanced at him in the rear-view mirror. You okay, bud? Yeah. You sure? You're awful quiet. Jamie was silent for a moment, then said, Tommy said his mom said you have a girlfriend. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He should have seen this coming. Of course, word had already spread. His mother had probably told someone at the clinic, and that someone had told someone else, and now it was making its way through town like wildfire. Did he now? Is it true? Marcus pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. He twisted in his seat to look at Jamie directly. Yeah, bud, it's true. Is it Alina? Yeah, it's Alina. Jamie considered this, his face serious. Are you going to marry her? Whoa, slow down. We're spending time together. Getting to know each other better. But you like her. I do. Is that okay with you? Jamie shrugged. I guess. She's nice. She is nice. And she really likes you. Does Grammy know? Yeah, she knows. Is she mad? Marcus hesitated. She's not mad. She's getting used to the idea. Jamie nodded slowly, processing this. Then he said, Can we still have pancakes on Saturday? The abrupt shift made Marcus smile. Yeah, bud, we can still have pancakes. Okay, then I don't care. And just like that, it was settled in Jamie's 4-year-old mind. Marcus wished everything else could be that simple. That evening, Diane came home from work looking tired. She set her purse on the counter and glanced at Marcus, who was making dinner. Can we talk? Yeah, of course. She gestured toward the living room and Marcus followed, his stomach tight with anticipation. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between them feeling wider than it actually was. I've been thinking, Diane started, about what you told me yesterday. Okay? And I want you to know that I'm not angry. I'm not even disappointed, really. I'm concerned. I know. Do you? Because I don't think you understand how this looks from the outside. Alina is my friend, has been for years, and now you're... She stopped, searching for words. It just feels complicated. It is complicated, but that doesn't make it wrong. I didn't say it was wrong. I said it was complicated. There's a difference. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. What do you want me to say, Mom? That I'll end it? That I'll pretend I don't feel what I feel? No. I want you to be careful. I want you to think about Jamie, about what this means for him. I'm thinking about him every day. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're thinking about yourself. And that's fine. You're allowed to. But you're also a father, and that has to come first. The words stung, mostly because there was truth in them. Marcus had been thinking about himself, about what he wanted, what he needed, but he'd also been trying to balance that with being a good father, and it felt like an impossible equation. I'm doing the best I can, he said quietly. Diane's expression softened. I know you are, and I know you care about her. I can see it. I worry, Marcus. That's what mothers do. I know, but you have to trust me. Trust that I know what I'm doing. Do you? He met her eyes. Not always, but I'm trying. Diane sighed, and for a moment she looked every one of her 58 years. Okay, if this is what you want, then I'll support you, but I need you to promise me something. What? That if it starts affecting Jamie negatively, you'll step back. You'll put him first no matter what. I will. I promise. She nodded, and some of the tension between them eased. It wasn't a full endorsement, but it was close enough. Marcus would take it. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Marcus called Alina and told her about both conversations, Jamie's easy acceptance, his mother's cautious support. See, Alina said, the world didn't end. Not yet. You're such an optimist. Someone has to balance out your reckless confidence. She laughed, and the sound made something in his chest loosen. So what now? Now I guess we just live, stop hiding. You ready for that? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's my guy. The word sent warmth through him, her guy. He liked the sound of that more than he probably should. Over the next few weeks, they eased into a new normal. Alina came over openly, spending evenings at the house, having dinner with Marcus and Jamie and Diane. It was awkward at first. Diane was polite but distant, clearly still adjusting. But slowly, over shared meals and quiet conversations, the tension began to ease. Jamie took to the new arrangement with the adaptability of a 4-year-old. Alina was just Alina, someone who played dinosaurs with him, read him stories, made his father smile more. The simplicity of his acceptance made Marcus realize how much of the complication existed only in the minds of adults. The town, predictably, had opinions. Marcus could feel the stares when he and Alina walked into the grocery store together, could hear the whispers at Jamie's school events. But Alina had been right. Letting people figure it out was easier than making a big announcement. They didn't owe anyone an explanation, and most people were too polite to ask directly. One Saturday in early January, Marcus and Alina took Jamie to the park. It was cold, the kind of biting chill that made your breath visible, but Jamie insisted on the swings anyway. Marcus pushed him while Alina stood nearby, hands shoved in her coat pockets, smiling at them. Higher, Jamie shouted. That's as high as I'm pushing you, bud. But I want to touch the sky, Alina laughed. Maybe we should get him a trampoline. Don't encourage him, Marcus said, but he was smiling. After a while, Jamie ran off to the jungle gym, and Marcus and Alina stood side by side, watching him climb. The silence between them was comfortable now, easy in a way it hadn't been even a month ago. This is nice, Alina said quietly. Yeah, it is. Feels normal, like we've been doing this forever. Marcus glanced at her. Does it scare you, how normal it feels? A little, but in a good way. She turned to face him. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong, but it hasn't. Yet. You really can't help yourself, can you? He grinned. Sorry, occupational hazard. She bumped her shoulder against his. Well, stop it. We're allowed to be happy. Are we? Yes, we're allowed. Marcus wanted to believe that, and standing there watching his son play while Alina stood beside him, he almost did. That night after Jamie was in bed, Marcus and Alina sat on the couch in the quiet house. Diane had gone to bed early, leaving them alone. Alina had her legs draped across his lap, and he was absently tracing patterns on her ankle. Can I ask you something? Alina said. Always. Do you ever regret it, starting this? Marcus looked at her carefully. Do you? No. But I'm not you. You had more to lose. I don't regret it. He meant it. I mean, it's been hard and messy. But no, I don't regret it. Good. Because I'm getting pretty attached to you. Just pretty attached? Very attached, extremely attached, inconveniently attached. Marcus laughed. Same. She shifted closer, curling into his side. I love this. Being here with you, feeling like I belong somewhere again. You do belong here. Yeah? Yeah. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped up in each other, the world outside forgotten. And for the first time in months, Marcus felt like maybe they'd figured it out. Maybe this could work. Maybe they could build something real and lasting out of all the mess and complication. The following week, Marcus's ex-wife called. He saw her name on the screen and felt his stomach drop. They hadn't spoken in months, not since the custody agreement had been finalized. He stepped outside onto the porch before answering. Hello? Marcus, it's Sarah. I know, what's up? I wanted to talk to you about Jamie. His grip tightened on the phone. What about him? I heard you're seeing someone. I wanted to make sure, I wanted to know who she is, if she's going to be around Jamie. Marcus felt anger flash through him. That's none of your business. He's my son. It is my business. You lost the right to have opinions about who's around him when you chose drugs over being a mother. The silence on the other end was sharp. Then Sarah said, voice tight, That's not fair. Neither is calling me out of nowhere to question my life. You want to know about Alina? She's good with him. She cares about him, and she's more stable than you ever were. I'm clean now. I've been clean for 6 months. Good for you. But that doesn't change anything. I want to see him, Marcus. I have rights. You have supervised visitation once a month. That's what the court ordered. If you want more than that, talk to your lawyer. I'm his mother. Then act like it. He hung up before she could respond, his hands shaking. Inside, Alina was in the kitchen, making tea. She looked up when he walked in, and her expression shifted immediately. What's wrong? Sarah called. About what? About you. About Jamie. About everything. He leaned against the counter, exhausted. She heard I was seeing someone, and suddenly she's concerned about who's around him, like she has any right to an opinion. Alina set the kettle down. What did you say? That it was none of her business, that you were good with him. He looked at her. Was that okay? I didn't mean to speak for you, but it's fine. I'm glad you did. She crossed to him, taking his hands. Are you worried she's going to cause problems? I don't know, maybe. She's been known to stir things up when she feels like she's losing control. Then we'll deal with it, together. Marcus pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. I'm sorry. I didn't think about how this would drag you into my mess. I knew what I was getting into, and I'm not going anywhere. They stood like that for a while, and Marcus tried to let her certainty ground him. But Sarah's call had rattled something loose, a reminder that the past wasn't as far behind him as he'd hoped. Over the next few days, Marcus found himself watching for signs that Sarah would follow through on her threat to cause problems. But nothing happened. No calls, no emails, no unexpected visits. Maybe she'd just been venting, or maybe she was planning something. He couldn't tell. Alina noticed his tension and tried to pull him out of it. She suggested they take Jamie to the movies, then out for pizza afterward. Jamie was thrilled, running ahead of them into the restaurant, talking non-stop about the cartoon they'd just seen. Marcus watched Alina laugh at something Jamie said, watched the easy way they interacted, and felt something settle in his chest. This was good. This was right. Whatever Sarah threw at them, they'd handle it, because Alina wasn't going anywhere, and neither was he. Later that night, after Jamie was asleep and Diane had retreated to her room, Marcus and Alina sat on the porch despite the cold. The stars were bright overhead, and the street was quiet. "I've been thinking," Alina said. "About what?" "About the future. What this looks like 6 months from now, a year from now." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "And what does it look like?" "I don't know, but I know I want you in it." She turned to face him. "I know that's probably too soon to say, and maybe it scares you, but I'm done pretending I don't feel things just because it's safer." "It doesn't scare me." "No?" "No. It's the first thing that's made sense in a long time." She smiled, and it was real and unguarded. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." "You keep saying that." "Because I mean it." Marcus kissed her, slow and certain, and for the first time in weeks, the knot in his chest loosened completely. They were going to be okay. Whatever came next, judgment, complications, Sarah's meddling, they'd face it together. Because some things were worth fighting for. Some people were worth the risk. And Alina was both. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm that felt almost ordinary. Marcus dropped Jamie at school, worked from home, picked him up in the afternoon. Alina came over most evenings, sometimes cooking dinner, sometimes just sitting on the couch while Jamie played nearby. They were building something, slowly and carefully, and for the first time since moving back, Marcus felt like he was living instead of just surviving. But Sarah's call hung over him like a dark cloud that refused to dissipate. He kept expecting her to follow through on whatever threat she'd been implying, but weeks passed with nothing. No calls, no visits, no legal motions, just silence. And somehow, that felt worse than confrontation. On a Tuesday morning in late January, Marcus was making breakfast when his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello?" "Mr. Rivers, this is Linda Chen from Family Services. I need to speak with you about a complaint we've received." Marcus's blood went cold. "What kind of complaint?" "Regarding your son, Jamie. We've received information suggesting that there may be concerns about his living situation. I'd like to schedule a home visit to discuss this." He gripped the phone tighter. "Who filed the complaint?" "I'm not at liberty to say, but we take all reports seriously and we need to conduct an investigation." Marcus forced himself to stay calm. "Fine. When? Would this Friday work, around 10 in the morning?" "Yeah, that's fine." He hung up and stood there, staring at nothing, his mind racing. Sarah. It had to be Sarah. She'd made her move after all, and she'd done it in the most damaging way possible. Diane walked into the kitchen, took one look at his face, and stopped. "What happened?" "Family Services. Someone filed a complaint about Jamie's living situation." "What? That's ridiculous. Who would—" She stopped, realization dawning. Sarah. Who else? Can she do that? Apparently she just did. Diane crossed to him, her face tight with anger. "What did they say?" "They want to do a home visit on Friday, an investigation." "An investigation? Marcus, this is insane. There's nothing wrong here. Jamie is thriving." "I know, but they have to follow up on complaints. That's how it works." He set his phone down, trying to think. "I need to call Alina. Warn her." "Why would you need to warn her?" "Because I guarantee Sarah mentioned her in whatever bullshit story she told them." He called Alina, and she answered on the first ring. When he explained the situation, she went quiet for a long moment. "Okay," she said finally. "What do you need me to do?" "I don't know. Maybe it's better if you're not here on Friday. If they're looking for reasons to—" "No." "Alina." "No, Marcus. I'm not hiding. If they're investigating your home life, they need to see what it actually looks like. And that includes me. This could make things worse. Or it could make things better. They'll see that Jamie has a stable home with people who love him. Running away just makes it look like we have something to hide." He wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Hiding would only feed into whatever narrative Sarah was trying to build. "Okay, but we need to be careful. Present a united front. We will. We'll handle this. Together." When Friday arrived, Marcus had cleaned the house twice, made sure Jamie's room was spotless, and gone over every possible question they might ask. Alina had arrived early, dressed conservatively in slacks and a sweater, her hair pulled back. She looked professional, composed, nothing like the woman who'd lounged on his couch in pajamas just 2 days ago. Diane had taken the morning off work to be there, and Jamie was at school, which Marcus was grateful for. The fewer variables, the better. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Marcus answered it to find a woman in her 40s with a briefcase and a neutral expression. "Mr. Rivers, I'm Linda Chen. We spoke on the phone." "Come in." She stepped inside, taking in the living room with a practiced eye. Marcus introduced her to Diane and Alina, and Linda shook their hands politely before pulling out a notepad. "I appreciate you all being here. As I mentioned, we received a complaint regarding Jamie's living situation. I want to be clear that this is just a preliminary investigation. We're here to assess whether there are any legitimate concerns." "There aren't," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice level. "I understand, but I still need to ask some questions." She glanced at Alina. "And you are?" "Alina Morales. I'm Marcus's girlfriend." Linda wrote something down. "How long have you been involved with Mr. Rivers?" "About 4 months." "And you spend time around Jamie?" "Yes, several times a week." "Do you live here?" "No, I have my own place." Linda nodded, making more notes. Then she turned to Marcus. "The complaint suggested that Jamie's care was being compromised due to your relationship with Ms. Morales. Can you speak to that?" Marcus felt anger surge through him, but he kept his voice calm. "That's not true. Jamie's care has never been compromised. He has a stable home, a consistent routine, and multiple adults who love him and look out for him." "Including Ms. Morales?" "Yes, including her." Linda's expression didn't change. "Can you describe a typical day for Jamie?" Marcus walked her through it: the morning routine, school drop-off, after-school activities, dinner, bedtime. He emphasized the structure, the consistency, the fact that Jamie was happy and healthy. "And Miss Morales' role in this routine?" Linda asked. Alina spoke before Marcus could. "I'm not trying to replace Jamie's mother. I'm someone who cares about him and wants to be supportive. Marcus and I are building something together, and Jamie is a part of that." "And you're comfortable with her presence, Mrs. Rivers?" Linda turned to Diane. "It's Ms. Rivers. And yes, I'm comfortable. Alina is a good person. She's been a friend of mine for years, and I trust her completely with my grandson." Linda made more notes, then asked to see Jamie's room. Marcus led her upstairs, his stomach tight with nerves. The room was pristine, bed made, toys organized, everything exactly as it should be. Linda looked around, opened the closet, checked the bathroom. Then she nodded. "Everything looks fine here." Back downstairs, she asked a few more questions about Jamie's health, his school performance, his emotional state. Marcus answered each one carefully, aware that every word could be twisted if someone wanted to twist it. Finally, Linda closed her notepad. "I think I have what I need. Based on what I've seen today, I don't see any cause for concern. The home is clean, Jamie appears to be well cared for, and there's a strong support system in place." Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. "So that's it? I'll need to file my report, but yes, unless something else comes up, this case will be closed." She paused. "For what it's worth, Mr. Rivers, it's clear that you care deeply about your son. Whatever motivated this complaint, I don't see evidence of neglect or harm." After Linda left, Marcus sank onto the couch, exhausted. Alina sat beside him, taking his hand. "See? It's okay. This time. But what if she tries again? What if this becomes a pattern?" Diane crossed her arms. "Then we deal with it. But Marcus, you can't live in fear of what Sarah might do. You've built a good life here. Don't let her take that away." "She's trying to. And she's failing. You heard Linda. There's nothing here to find. Sarah can file complaints all she wants, but the truth is on your side." Marcus wanted to believe that. But he'd learned the hard way that the truth didn't always matter as much as it should. That night, after Diane went to bed and Jamie was asleep, Marcus and Alina sat on the back porch despite the cold. The conversation they'd been avoiding all day finally surfaced. "This is my fault," Alina said quietly. "Don't. It is. If you weren't with me, Sarah wouldn't have ammunition. Sarah would find ammunition no matter what. That's what she does." Marcus turned to face her. This isn't on you. Feels like it is. Well, it's not, and I'm not letting her win. I'm not giving up what we have because she's bitter and vindictive. Alina looked at him, and he could see the uncertainty in her eyes. Are you sure? Because if this is going to keep causing problems, I'm sure. He took her face in his hands. I'm not walking away. Not from you. Not from this. Even if it gets harder? Especially if it gets harder. She kissed him then, and it felt like a promise. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. I love you, she said. I know it's probably too soon, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I do. Marcus felt his breath catch. He'd known he was falling for her, had felt it creeping up on him for weeks. But hearing her say it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had. I love you too, he said. And he meant it. They sat there in the cold, wrapped around each other, and Marcus felt something shift. This wasn't just about wanting her anymore. It wasn't just about the chemistry or the comfort. It was bigger than that, deeper. And whatever came next, he knew they'd face it together. The next few weeks were quiet. No more calls from family services, no surprise visits, no legal maneuvers. Sarah had made her play and lost, and apparently she was smart enough not to try again immediately. Marcus started to relax, started to believe that maybe they'd weathered the worst of it. Jamie's 5th birthday arrived in early February, and Marcus threw him a party at the house. A dozen kids from school, their parents, pizza and cake, and chaos. Alina helped organize everything, and Marcus watched her move through the crowd with ease, talking to the other parents, helping kids with party games, cutting cake. She fit, and everyone could see it. After the party, when the house was quiet again and Jamie was passed out from sugar overload, Marcus found Alina in the kitchen cleaning up. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. She smiled at him over her shoulder. Good party. Thanks for helping. Of course. She dried her hands on a towel and leaned against the counter. The other parents were nice. They were also gossiping about us. I could tell. Let them. We're not doing anything wrong. I know. It's weird being the subject of conversation. You get used to it. She crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Besides, let them talk. In 6 months, we'll be old news, and they'll move on to someone else. You think so? I know so. That's how small towns work. Marcus kissed her forehead. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just didn't notice. He laughed, and it felt good. Easy. Like maybe they really were going to be okay. In March, Diane pulled Marcus aside one evening after dinner. They sat on the porch, and she handed him a cup of tea. I want to apologize, she said. Marcus blinked. For what? For how I reacted when I first found out about you and Alina. I was judgmental. I let my own fears get in the way of seeing what was actually happening. Mom, you don't... Let me finish. She looked at him steadily. I was worried about you, about Jamie, about what people would think, but I was wrong to make you feel like you had to justify your choices. You're an adult. You know what's best for your life. And I can see now that Alina makes you happy. That's what matters. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Thanks, Mom. She's good for you, and she's good with Jamie. I was blind not to see that from the start. You were protecting me. I get it. Still, I'm sorry. She reached over and squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you, you know, for standing up for what you wanted, for not letting fear run your life. I learned from the best. She smiled, and for a moment they sat in comfortable silence. Then Diane said, So when are you going to ask her to move in? Marcus nearly choked on his tea. What? Oh, come on. You two are together every day anyway, and she's practically living here half the time. Might as well make it official. I haven't thought about it. Liar. You've definitely thought about it. He had. Of course he had. But saying it out loud felt like tempting fate. It's too soon, he said finally. Is it? You love her. She loves you. Jamie adores her. What are you waiting for? I don't know. Certainty, maybe. Diane laughed. Sweetheart, there's no such thing as certainty. You just have to take the leap and trust you'll figure it out. That night, Marcus lay in bed thinking about what his mother had said. Moving in together felt like a huge step, bigger than anything they'd done so far. But it also felt inevitable, like they were already heading there and he was just afraid to admit it. He texted Alina. You awake? Yeah, can't sleep. You? Same. Can I ask you something? Always. Would you ever want to live together? Not now, necessarily, but eventually? The pause was long enough to make him nervous. Then her response came. Yes. Absolutely yes. Yeah? Yeah, I've been thinking about it too. Didn't want to push. You're not pushing. I'm asking. Then my answer is yes. Whenever you're ready. Marcus smiled at his phone. Okay. Good. Let's do it. You mean that? I mean it. They texted for another hour, making plans, talking about logistics. It felt surreal and exciting and terrifying all at once, but it also felt right. 2 weeks later, Alina started moving her things into the house. Not all at once, just gradually, the way couples do when they're easing into cohabitation. A few clothes here, some books there, her coffee mug that Marcus had grown used to seeing in the kitchen. Jamie was thrilled, treating it like a prolonged sleepover. Diane just smiled and helped carry boxes. By April, Alina was fully moved in. They'd turned the guest room into her office, given her half the closet, rearranged the furniture to make space for her life alongside theirs. It should have felt crowded. Instead, it felt complete. One Saturday morning, Marcus woke to find Alina already up, making breakfast with Jamie. He stood in the doorway watching them work together. Jamie standing on a stool, cracking eggs into a bowl while Alina guided his hands. The domesticity of it hit him square in the chest. Morning, Alina said, noticing him. We're making omelets. I can see that. Daddy, I'm helping. You're doing great, bud. Marcus crossed to the counter, kissed Alina's temple, ruffled Jamie's hair. This was his life now. This was his family. And it was better than anything he'd imagined when he'd first moved back. In May, Sarah called again. Marcus saw her name on the screen and almost didn't answer, but something told him he needed to. What do you want, Sarah? I want to see my son. You have your scheduled visits. That hasn't changed. I want more. I'm better now, Marcus. I've been clean for almost a year. I'm working. I'm stable. I deserve a chance. Marcus walked outside, lowering his voice. You want more time with Jamie? Fine. But you have to prove you're serious. Consistent visits. Show up when you say you will. Stop trying to undermine me. I wasn't trying to. You filed a false complaint with Family Services. Don't lie to me. The silence on the other end was damning. Finally, Sarah said, I was scared. I thought you were replacing me. I'm not replacing you, but I'm not letting you hurt him either. If you want to be part of his life, you have to earn it. And that starts with respecting boundaries. Okay, I can do that. Prove it. Show up for your visits, be consistent, and we'll talk about more. Thank you, Marcus. He hung up feeling exhausted, but also oddly hopeful. Maybe Sarah really was getting her act together. Maybe she could be a positive part of Jamie's life again. Time would tell. That evening, he told Alina about the conversation. She listened quietly, then said, How do you feel about it? Cautiously optimistic? I don't know. Part of me wants to believe her. But I've been burned before. So you protect yourself. But you also give her a chance, for Jamie's sake. Yeah, that's the plan. She took his hand. Whatever happens, we'll handle it. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. Marcus pulled her close, and they sat like that for a long time. The future was uncertain. It always would be. But for the first time in years, that didn't terrify him. Because he wasn't facing it alone anymore. Summer arrived, bringing long days and warm evenings. Marcus and Alina fell into an easy rhythm. Work, Jamie's activities, quiet nights on the porch after he went to bed. They fought sometimes, the way all couples do, over small things that felt big in the moment. But they always worked through it, always came back to each other. In July, Jamie asked Alina if she was going to be his new mom. They were at the park, and Marcus froze, not sure how to handle it. But Alina just crouched down to Jamie's level. I'm not replacing your mom, she said gently. She'll always be your mom, but I love you, and I love your dad, and I'm going to be here for you. Is that okay? Jamie thought about it, then nodded. Yeah, that's okay. And just like that, it was settled. In August, Sarah showed up for her scheduled visit and kept showing up. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, she came to see Jamie. She was sober, stable, present in a way she hadn't been in years. Marcus was wary at first, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But slowly, cautiously, he started to believe this might be real. One afternoon, Sarah pulled him aside after dropping Jamie off. "I want to thank you." "For what?" "For giving me another chance, for not shutting me out completely." Marcus studied her. She looked healthier than he'd seen her in years, clear eyes, steady hands, real. "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Jamie." "I know, but still, thank you. Just keep showing up, that's all I ask." "I will, I promise." And for once, Marcus believed her. By the time fall arrived, life had settled into something that felt almost normal. Marcus and Alina had been together for almost a year, and the initial intensity had mellowed into something steadier, deeper. They'd weathered Sarah's interference, the town's gossip, the complications of blending their lives, and they'd come out stronger for it. One October evening, after Jamie was asleep, Marcus and Alina sat on the back porch wrapped in a blanket against the chill. The stars were bright overhead, and the night was quiet. "You ever think about how we got here?" Marcus asked. "All the time." "And?" "And I wouldn't change a thing." She turned to look at him. "Even the hard parts, because they led us here." Marcus kissed her, slow and certain. "I love you." "I love you too." They sat there in the darkness, wrapped around each other, and Marcus thought about everything they'd been through. The secrecy, the fear, the complications, and how none of it mattered as much as this, the quiet moments, the steady presence, the feeling of being exactly where he was supposed to be. This wasn't the life he'd planned when he moved back. It was better. Messier, more complicated, but infinitely better. Because he'd stopped trying to control everything and started trusting that some things were worth the risk. Alina was worth the risk. Jamie was worth the risk. This imperfect, cobbled-together family was worth the risk. And as he sat there under the stars, holding the woman he loved, Marcus finally let himself believe it. They were going to be okay. More than okay. They were going to be happy, not in some distant, perfect future, but right now, in this moment, with all its flaws and complications and beautiful, messy reality. And that was more than enough. In November, Marcus and Alina made it official. Not with a wedding, they weren't ready for that yet, but with a small celebration at the house, just family and close friends, acknowledging what everyone already knew. They were together, they were building a life, and they weren't hiding anymore. Diane gave a toast that made everyone cry, talking about second chances and found family, and the courage it takes to choose love even when it's complicated. Jamie stood on his chair and declared that Alina made the best pancakes, which got a huge laugh. And Sarah, who'd been invited at Marcus's suggestion, sat in the back and smiled, genuinely smiled, at the happiness her son had found. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Jamie was asleep, Marcus found Alina in their room, getting ready for bed. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood there looking at themselves in the mirror. "Happy?" he asked. "Incredibly." "Me too." She turned in his arms, her hands coming up to frame his face. "Thank you." "For what?" "For taking a chance on me. For not giving up when it got hard. For building this with me." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Thank you for being brave enough to start it." They climbed into bed, and as Alina curled into his side, Marcus felt the last piece of tension he'd been carrying finally release. This was home. Not the house, not the town, this. The warmth of her body against his, the sound of Jamie's soft breathing down the hall. The knowledge that tomorrow would bring more of the same beautiful, complicated, ordinary life they'd built together. He'd come back to this town looking for stability, for a safe place to raise his son and rebuild his life. And he'd found all of that. But he'd also found something he hadn't known he was looking for, someone who saw him completely, who wasn't afraid of his mess, who chose him every single day. Some love stories were simple. Theirs wasn't. It was hidden glances across dinner tables, stolen mornings when the rest of the world was still asleep, whispered conversations in the dark about futures that once seemed impossible. It was complicated and messy and sometimes hard, but it was also real. And it was theirs. And in a world full of noise and judgment and expectations, that was more than enough. Marcus closed his eyes, Alina's breathing evening out beside him, and let himself drift. Tomorrow they'd wake up and do it all again. The school runs and work calls and dinner prep and bedtime stories. The ordinary, extraordinary life they'd fought so hard to build, and he couldn't wait. The weeks that followed settled into something that felt both fragile and permanent at the same time. Marcus kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Sarah to make another move, for the town gossip to reach a fever pitch, for something to crack the foundation they'd built. But nothing came. The silence was almost more unnerving than conflict would have been. February arrived with the kind of cold that made you question why anyone chose to live this far north. Marcus stood at the kitchen window watching ice form on the driveway, coffee mug warming his hands, thinking about how much had changed in the 6 months since that first kiss. Alina was upstairs getting ready for work, her freelance design business picking up enough that she'd converted the spare bedroom into an office. Jamie was at the table finishing his cereal, chattering about something that had happened at school yesterday. Diane had already left for her shift at the clinic. This was his life now. Ordinary, domestic, everything he'd moved back here hoping to find. So why did he still feel like he was holding his breath? "Daddy, you're not listening." Marcus turned from the window. "Sorry, bud. What'd you say?" "I said, can Alina come to parent day at school?" Something tightened in Marcus's chest. "When's parent day?" "Next week. Miss Sarah said we can bring whoever we want. So, can she come?" "Don't you want me to come?" Jamie rolled his eyes with the exasperation only a 5-year-old could muster. "You and her, both." Marcus heard footsteps on the stairs and looked up to see Alina coming down, dressed for a client meeting. She caught the end of the conversation and raised an eyebrow. "Both of us where?" "Parent day at school," Jamie announced. "I told Miss Sarah I want you and Daddy to come." Alina glanced at Marcus, something uncertain flickering across her face. "If that's okay with your dad." "It's okay with me if it's okay with you," Marcus said carefully. "Then I'm in." She crossed to Jamie and ruffled his hair. "But I'm not doing crafts. Your dad's the craft guy." "Nobody's a craft guy," Marcus muttered, but he was smiling. After dropping Jamie at school, Marcus drove back home and found himself standing in the driveway, staring at the house. His phone buzzed, a text from his ex-wife. "Can we talk?" "In person." His stomach dropped. He stared at the message for a long moment before texting back. "About what?" "Jamie. And other things." "Please." Marcus exhaled slowly. He'd been expecting this. Sarah had been quiet for too long, eerily quiet. The supervised visits had continued without incident, but she'd been distant during them, like her mind was somewhere else. "When?" "Today? I'm in town. Coffee at Meg's, the local coffee shop. Public, safe. He could do that." 1 hour. He walked inside and found Alina at her desk, headphones on, working. He knocked on the doorframe and she looked up, pulling the headphones down. "Hey, thought you had meetings all morning." "I do, but Sarah just texted, wants to meet." Alina's expression shifted. "About what?" "She didn't say, just that it's about Jamie." "You want me to come with you?" "No, I think this is something I need to do alone." He leaned against the doorframe. "But thank you." "Okay, but call me if you need backup." "I will." 40 minutes later, Marcus sat in a corner booth at Meg's coffee shop, watching the door. Sarah walked in right on time, and he was struck by how different she looked. Not just sober, she'd managed that before, briefly, but settled. Like she'd finally made peace with something. She slid into the booth across from him, ordered a black coffee from the waitress, then met his eyes. "Thanks for meeting me." "You said it was about Jamie." "It is. Sort of." She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug when it arrived. "I'm moving." Marcus felt his pulse spike. "Moving where?" "Portland. I got a job offer. Good pay, benefits, stability. Everything I need to actually build a life." "Portland's 3 hours away." "I know. That's why I'm telling you now. I need to adjust the custody arrangement." Every muscle in Marcus's body tensed. "Absolutely not. We have an agreement. You don't get to just—" "I'm not trying to take him from you." Sarah's voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. I'm saying I want to give up my custody rights. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus stared at her, not sure he'd heard correctly. What? I want to sign over full custody. To you, legally, permanently. Why? Sarah looked down at her coffee. Because I'm not his mother anymore. Not really. I mean, biologically, sure. But that's not what makes someone a mother. And I can't keep pretending that seeing him twice a month makes me a parent. It's not fair to him. Or to you. Sarah, let me finish. She looked up, and there were tears in her eyes. I love him. I'll always love him. But the best thing I can do for Jamie is let him have the life he deserves. The stable one. With you and Alina and your mom. The one where he doesn't have to worry about whether I'm going to show up or disappear again. Marcus felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. This was what he'd wanted. Complete custody, no more court dates, no more supervised visits. But hearing her say it out loud felt wrong somehow, like a failure he hadn't seen coming. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, I do. I've been talking to my therapist about it for months. This is the right thing, for everyone. What about visitation? You can still… No. Her voice was firm. Clean break. That's what I need. What we both need. I'll send birthday cards, Christmas presents, if you'll let me. But that's it. He deserves better than a part-time mother who can't get her life together. You are getting your life together. In Portland. Away from here. Away from all the memories and the people who remember who I used to be. She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of his. This is me being a mother, Marcus. This is me doing what's best for our son, even though it kills me. Marcus felt his throat tighten. When? The paperwork's already drawn up. My lawyer can send it over whenever you're ready, and I'll be gone by the end of the month. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus said, Does Jamie know? No, I thought maybe you could tell him. Make it easier somehow. There's no easy way to tell a kid his mother's leaving. I know, but you'll figure it out. You always do. Sarah stood, pulling cash from her wallet and setting it on the table. I'm sorry, Marcus, for everything, for all the ways I failed you. Failed him. Sarah? But she was already walking toward the door. Marcus watched her go, feeling like he should stop her, should say something profound or forgiving. Instead, he just sat there, coffee going cold, trying to process what had just happened. When he got home, Alina took one look at his face and crossed the room. What happened? He told her everything. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. How do you feel? I don't know. Relieved, angry, sad. All of it at once. That sounds about right. She took his hand. What do you need? I need to figure out how to tell Jamie his mother's leaving, permanently. We'll figure it out, together. That night, after dinner, Marcus sat Jamie down on the couch. Alina had offered to give them space, but Jamie had insisted she stay. So she sat on Jamie's other side, quiet and present. Hey, bud, I need to talk to you about something important. Jamie looked up, his expression serious. Is it about Mom? Marcus was surprised. Yeah. How'd you know? She was acting weird last time, like she was sad. Jamie swung his legs, not quite meeting Marcus's eyes. Is she going away? Yeah. She's moving to Portland. For a job. Will I still see her? This was the hard part. Marcus took a breath. No, buddy. She's not going to be able to visit anymore. She thinks it's better this way. For everyone. Jamie was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he said, Is it because of me? No. Marcus pulled him close. It's not because of you. It's because she's trying to build a better life for herself, and she thinks the best way to do that is to start fresh somewhere new. But I'm her kid. You are. And she loves you. But sometimes love means letting go when you can't give someone what they need. Jamie leaned into him, and Marcus felt his small body shake with tears he was trying to hold back. Alina reached over, her hand on Jamie's shoulder, her presence steady. I'm sorry, bud. I know this is hard. Will you leave too? The question was directed at Alina, and Marcus felt his chest tighten, but Alina didn't hesitate. No, I'm not going anywhere. I promise. What if you change your mind? I won't. You're stuck with me. She smiled, gentle. Besides, Your dad would be lost without me. Someone has to make sure he doesn't burn breakfast. Jamie gave a wet laugh, wiping his eyes. He's really bad at breakfast. The worst, Alina agreed. They sat like that for a while, the three of them huddled together on the couch. Eventually, Jamie's tears stopped and he pulled away looking at Marcus. Can we watch a movie? Yeah, we can watch a movie. They spent the evening on the couch, Jamie wedged between them, watching some animated film about talking animals. Marcus only half paid attention, his mind still turning over Sarah's words. This is me being a mother. Maybe she was right. Maybe letting go was the kindest thing she could do, but it didn't make it hurt any less for Jamie. The following week, Marcus signed the custody papers. His lawyer reviewed them, confirmed everything was in order, and just like that, it was done. Jamie was legally, permanently his. No more court dates. No more supervised visits. No more waiting for Sarah to decide she wanted to fight for custody again. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it just felt heavy. Alina found him on the back porch that night, staring at nothing. She sat beside him, pulling a blanket around both of them. You okay? I don't know. I got what I wanted. Full custody. No more complications. But I keep thinking about Jamie, about what this means for him. Growing up knowing his mother chose to leave. He's not going to see it that way. Not with you and your mom and me. He's got more love and stability than most kids ever get. That doesn't erase what he lost. No, but it gives him something to build on. Alina leaned her head on his shoulder. You can't protect him from every hurt, Marcus, but you can be there when it happens, and that's what matters. He knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. The next morning brought a different kind of complication. Marcus was making coffee when his mother walked into the kitchen, her face serious. We need to talk. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Those 4 words never led anywhere good. About what? About the house. What about it? Diane sat at the table, gesturing for him to join her. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I wanted to talk to you before making any decisions. I'm thinking about selling. Selling the house. Why? Because I'm ready to downsize. This place is too big for just me. And with you and Alina and Jamie here, it's wonderful, but it's also a lot. I was thinking about getting a smaller place, maybe a condo, something easier to maintain. Marcus processed this. Where would that leave us? That's what I want to talk about. I was thinking, what if you bought the house from me? I'd sell it to you well below market value. You and Elena could build your life here, and I'd get to move on without worrying about strangers living in the place I raised you. Mom, we can't afford. I'm not asking you to pay me all at once. We'd work something out. Low payments, whatever makes sense. She reached across the table. I want you to have this place, Marcus. I want Jamie to grow up here the way you did. And I want you and Alina to have a home that's really yours. Marcus felt emotion well up in his chest. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. That evening, he told Alina. They sat in their bedroom, the door closed, talking in low voices so Jamie wouldn't hear. Your mom wants us to buy the house. Alina's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely. She's ready to downsize, and she wants us to have it. Can we afford that? With what she's offering, yeah. It'd be tight, but manageable, especially with your business picking up. Alina was quiet for a moment, then said, This would be ours. Really ours. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Say yes. She smiled, tears threatening. Yes. Absolutely yes. They told Diane the next morning, and she cried, happy tears that made Marcus realize how much this meant to her. The paperwork took weeks to sort out, but by the end of March, the house was officially theirs. Diane moved into a small condo across town, close enough to visit but far enough to have her own space. And Marcus and Alina started making plans, small renovations, paint colors, ways to make the house feel like it belonged to their life together. Jamie's parent day at school arrived on a Tuesday morning. Marcus had taken the day off work, and Alina had rescheduled her meetings. They walked into Jamie's classroom together, and Marcus immediately felt the weight of eyes on them. The other parent smiled politely, but he could see the curiosity, the judgment. Alina must have felt it too because she reached over and took his hand. A clear signal. We're together. Deal with it. Jamie ran over, pulling them toward his desk. Look, I made this. It was a drawing, stick figures labeled Daddy, Elina, Grammy, and me. A house with a too big sun and a lopsided tree. The kind of art that would end up on the refrigerator because it was perfect in its imperfection. "This is great, bud," Marcus said. "Alina's taller than you," Jamie pointed out. "She wishes," Elina said, grinning. They spent the morning doing activities with the other families, crafts that Marcus was predictably terrible at, games that Jamie dominated, snack time where Marcus realized he'd forgotten to pack anything resembling healthy. But Elina had thought ahead, pulling out apple slices and string cheese from her bag like some kind of parenting wizard. At the end of the morning, Jamie's teacher pulled them aside. "I just wanted to say, Jamie talks about you both all the time. It's clear he feels very loved." "Thank you," Marcus said. "And I think it's wonderful that he has such a strong support system. Not every child is that fortunate." As they walked to the car, Jamie between them holding both their hands, Marcus felt something shift. This was his family. Imperfect, cobbled together from broken pieces, but his. And anyone who had a problem with that could deal with their own issues. April brought warmer weather and a sense of normalcy. Marcus had stopped expecting. Work was steady, Alina's business was thriving, Jamie was happy at school. Sarah's lawyer had sent one final communication confirming the custody transfer was complete, and then silence. She'd kept her promise. Clean break, no looking back. One Saturday morning, Marcus woke to find Alina already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop and a mug of tea. She looked troubled. "You okay?" She glanced up, startled. "Yeah, I got an email from my ex-husband." Marcus felt tension coil in his shoulders. "What do you want?" "He's getting remarried. Wanted to let me know. Said he hopes I'm doing well." "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. Fine, I guess. It's weird. I spent so long being angry at him, and now it's just nothing. Like that whole chapter of my life happened to someone else." Marcus sat beside her, taking her hand. "That's not a bad thing." "I know. It's just strange. Moving on felt impossible a year ago. Now I can't even remember why I thought that." "People change. Situations change. You changed me." She looked at him, her expression soft. "In all the best ways. You changed me too." She kissed him, slow and certain. "I love you. You know that?" "I might have heard you mention it once or twice." She laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen, chasing away whatever shadows her ex's email had brought. By May, they'd settled into their life in a way that felt permanent. Marcus found himself thinking less about what could go wrong and more about what was going right. Jamie was thriving. His kindergarten teacher said he was ahead in reading and had made several close friends. Alina had landed her biggest client yet, a contract that would keep her busy through the summer. And Marcus's job had offered him a promotion that came with a raise and more flexibility. One evening, after Jamie was in bed, Marcus and Alina sat on the back porch. The air was warm, carrying the smell of fresh-cut grass and honeysuckle. Somewhere down the street, someone was playing music, the bass thumping faintly. "I've been thinking," Alina said. "About what?" "About us. About what comes next." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Okay. I don't need a ring or a big wedding or any of that traditional stuff, but I want to know we're building towards something permanent, that this isn't just convenience or timing. It's not." "Then what is it?" Marcus turned to face her fully. "It's everything. You're everything. And I know I haven't said this officially, but I want to marry you, eventually, when we're ready, both of us." Alina's eyes filled with tears. "Yeah? Yeah, I'm not going anywhere, and I want to make that official. Legally, permanently, all of it." "Are you proposing right now?" "Not officially. I don't have a ring, or a plan, or any of the stuff you're supposed to have. I'm saying I want a future with you, a real one." She kissed him, and it tasted like salt and promise. "I want that too." They sat there in the dark, wrapped around each other, and Marcus felt the last piece of uncertainty he'd been carrying finally settle. This was his life. Not perfect, not simple, but his. And he wouldn't trade it for anything. The summer passed in a blur of swimming lessons and backyard barbecues and lazy evenings on the porch. In August, Jamie started first grade, and Marcus drove him to school on the first day feeling that particular brand of parental anxiety that never quite goes away. You got your lunch? Yes, Daddy. And your backpack? Yes. And you remember your teacher's name? Mrs. Lopez. You asked me like 1,000,000 times. Marcus pulled into the drop-off line and turned to look at Jamie, 6 years old, wearing his new sneakers and a backpack almost as big as he was. Growing up too fast. You're going to be great, bud. I know. Can I go now? Marcus laughed. Yeah, go. Jamie hopped out, waved, and ran toward the school building without looking back. Marcus watched him go, feeling that familiar ache of pride and melancholy. When he got home, Alina was waiting with coffee. How'd it go? He didn't even cry. I almost did, but he was fine. That's good. Means we're doing something right. Or he's just braver than me. Probably both. They spent the morning working, Marcus at his desk upstairs, Alina in her office. At lunch, they ate sandwiches on the porch and talked about nothing important. It was ordinary, comfortable. Everything Marcus had come back here hoping to find. That afternoon, his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Marcus, it's Sarah. His stomach dropped. She'd promised a clean break. Why was she calling? What's wrong? Nothing. I wanted to hear your voice. Make sure you were real. Sarah, you can't do this. We agreed. I know what we agreed, and I'm keeping my promise. I needed one last conversation. To say thank you. For what? For giving Jamie the life I couldn't. For being the parent he deserves. For not giving up on being a good father even when everything else was falling apart. Marcus felt his throat tighten. You could have been part of that. No, I couldn't. We both know that. Her voice cracked. I'm not calling to change anything. I'm just calling to say I'm proud of you. And I hope someday Jamie knows that I loved him enough to let him go. I'll make sure he knows. Thank you. She paused. Goodbye, Marcus. Goodbye, Sarah. He hung up and sat there for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then Alina appeared in the doorway. You okay? Yeah, just closure, I guess. Good closure or bad closure? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. She crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders from behind. Whatever it is, we'll handle it. You really need to come up with a new line. Never. It works every time. He pulled her around to sit in his lap, and they stayed like that for a while, wrapped up in each other, the afternoon sun slanting through the windows. September arrived, and with it came Jamie's 6th birthday. They threw a party in the backyard. Smaller this time, just close friends and family. Jamie ran around with his friends, hopped up on sugar and excitement, while the adults sat on the porch watching. Diane pulled Marcus aside at one point. You know I'm proud of you, right? You've mentioned it once or twice. I mean it. A year ago, I wasn't sure you'd make it. The divorce, the custody battle, moving back here, it was a lot. But you did it. You built something good. We built something good. You, me, Alina. It took all of us. Still, you should be proud. Marcus looked out at the yard. At Jamie laughing with his friends. At Alina helping serve cake. At the life they'd built from scratch. Yeah, I am. That night, after everyone had gone home and Jamie was asleep, Marcus found Alina cleaning up the kitchen. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Hey yourself, good party? The best. Jamie had fun. He did. Marcus paused. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it, choosing this life with me? Alina turned in his arms, her expression serious. Not even for a second. This is exactly where I want to be. Even with all the complications, the gossip, the ex-wife drama, the small-town judgment, especially with all that, because it means we chose each other. We fought for this, and that makes it worth more than something that just came easy. Marcus kissed her forehead. I don't say it enough, but I'm grateful. For you. For everything you've brought into our lives. Well, someone had to teach you how to make decent pancakes. He laughed. I'm serious. I know, and I'm serious too. We're good, Marcus. Better than good. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. They finished cleaning up together, moving around each other with the ease of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. When they finally climbed into bed, Marcus pulled Alina close, feeling her warmth against him. "I love you," he said into the darkness. "I love you too." And lying there, with the woman he loved beside him and his son sleeping safely down the hall, Marcus finally let himself believe it. They'd made it. Through all the chaos and complications, through the judgment and the fear, they'd built something real, something lasting. It wasn't the life he'd planned when he moved back. It was better. Messier more complicated, but infinitely better, because it was theirs. Built from choice and risk and the courage to reach for something good, even when it was hard. The fall passed quietly. Work continued, Jamie thrived in first grade, Alina's business grew. They were just a family now, ordinary and unremarkable to anyone looking from the outside. But to Marcus, it felt like a miracle. Every morning he woke up beside Alina. Every afternoon he picked Jamie up from school. Every evening they sat together at dinner. It all felt like something he'd fought hard to earn. In November, on a crisp Saturday morning, Marcus woke to find Alina already up. He found her on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sun rise. Couldn't sleep? Just thinking. He sat beside her, pulling part of the blanket over his own shoulders. About what? About how far we've come. A year ago, we were still hiding, still figuring out if this could work. And now, she gestured at the house, at the life they'd built. Now it's just real. Good real or scary real? Both, but mostly good. She turned to look at him. I'm happy, Marcus. Really, truly happy. I didn't think I'd get to feel this again. Me neither. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sky lighten. Then Alina said, I want to marry you. Not eventually. Soon. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. How soon? I don't know. Spring? We don't need anything big. Just us, Jamie, your mom, something small and real. You sure? Completely. I'm done waiting for the perfect moment. This is the perfect moment. Right here, right now, this life we've built. I don't want to wait anymore. Marcus pulled the small box from his pocket, the one he'd been carrying for 3 weeks, waiting for the right time. Then it's a good thing I came prepared. Alina's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, nothing flashy, just elegant and real. Alina Morales, will you marry me? She laughed through tears. Yes, absolutely yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as the sun came up, bathing the world in gold light. And Marcus thought, this is it. This is everything. They told Jamie that afternoon. He looked at the ring, looked at them, and said, Does this mean Alina's staying forever? Yeah, bud. Forever. Good. Because I like her pancakes better than yours. Everyone likes her pancakes better than mine. They got married in April, in the backyard of the house that was now theirs. Diane cried through the entire ceremony. Jamie served as ring bearer and took the job so seriously that several guests had to stifle laughs. The ceremony was short, simple, perfect. When the officiant pronounced them married, Marcus kissed his wife, and felt every piece of his life click into place. This was home. Not the house, not the town. This. Alina's hand in his, Jamie's laughter in the background, the knowledge that they'd built something that would last. The reception spilled into the evening, friends and family celebrating under string lights in the backyard. Marcus found Alina at one point, standing by the fence, looking out at everything they'd created. Hey, Mrs. Rivers. She grinned. I'm keeping my name. I know, but I wanted to try it out. How's it feel? Pretty damn good. She pulled him close, her arms around his neck. Thank you. For what? For taking a chance on me. For not giving up when it got hard. For building this beautiful, messy life with me. Thank you for being brave enough to start it. They swayed together as the music played, surrounded by people they loved, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Complete, bone-deep peace. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Jamie was asleep, Marcus and Alina sat on the porch one last time. The stars were bright overhead, and the air smelled like spring. So, Alina said, we did it. We did. Any regrets? Not even one. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Good, because you're stuck with me now. I can live with that. They sat in comfortable silence, and Marcus thought about everything they'd been through, the secrecy, the fear, the judgment, Sarah's departure, the custody battle, the slow work of building trust and stability. All of it had led here, to this moment, to this life. It wasn't perfect. There would still be challenges, still be days when things felt hard, but they'd face them together, as a family, as partners who'd chosen each other again and again through every complication and obstacle. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Marcus closed his eyes, Alina's warmth against his side, and let himself feel it all. The gratitude, the love, the simple joy of being exactly where he was supposed to be. They'd built this from nothing, from stolen mornings and whispered conversations and the courage to reach for something good, even when the world said it was impossible. And they'd succeeded. Against all odds, despite every complication, they'd built a life worth living, a family worth fighting for, a love worth every risk they'd taken to find it. In a world full of noise and judgment and expectations, they'd carved out their own space, their own truth. And it was beautiful in its imperfection, powerful in its simplicity. This was their story. Not the one anyone expected, not the one that made sense on paper, but it was real, and it was theirs. And that made it perfect. Marcus opened his eyes, looked at his wife beside him, and smiled. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. But tonight, they had this: the quiet, the peace, the certainty that they'd found something rare and precious. And that was more than he'd ever dared to hope for.